my walk. You think I'm effective there, you think I'm effective right here. Because God didn't call me here, He called me there. And why do you think churches die? Why do you think the 10% of the people that do all of the work croak out and quit? Because they won't say no. Because they won't say, I'm doing a great work for God right here, so I'm just going to go ahead and come down. And I'm going to try to do it all, and I'm going to try to do everything, and church is full. And pastors get tired. Because we don't embrace our place, and then the church is done. You don't let the enemy distract you from what God has called you to. You do not let the enemy distract you from what God has called you to. Here's the second one. He tries to discredit you. He tries to discredit you. And he does that two ways. First of all, by spreading rumors. Now, we know that it's only the unchurched that spread rumors about the church.
Okay.
Right?
Wrong.
Oh, okay. Let me say this, because I had a conversation about this morning. Did I not? The more you do for God, the more people will talk about you. The more they will gossip about you. Verse 5 through 7 reads this. The fifth time, Sanballat's servant came with an open letter in his hand. Now here's the importance of the open letter part. Because back in the day, when something was confidential, they sent a letter to you and they sealed it. This they remained open because they wanted to discredit you in public forum. They wanted anybody to be able to read what they had to say about you. And this is what it said. There is a rumor among the surrounding nations, and Geshem tells me that it's true. Of course he would, because he's what? Thank you. That you and the Jews are planning to rebel, and that is why you're building the wall. According to his reports, your plan is to be their king. He also reports that you have appointed prophets in Jerusalem to proclaim about you, look, there is a king in Judah. You can be very sure that this report will get back to the king, so I suggest that you come and talk it over with me. Here's what they didn't know about Nehemiah, and here's what you can read about Nehemiah in Nehemiah chapter 5, specifically verse 16 through 18. Nehemiah was one of the most selfless leaders around at that time. Nehemiah could have taken financial gain, but he didn't. He could have taken food for himself, but he didn't. Nehemiah was legit because everything he was doing for God, but then you got the bad guys that want to stir the pot up to try to discredit him and have people around them believe that Nehemiah wasn't what Nehemiah said he was. So here's what Nehemiah did. And I wondered, kind of a side note, but you know, God always teaches me very specifically, and He lets me go through things before or after I teach a message so that I can attach myself to it one way or the other. And most of the time I don't like it because sometimes it sucks. But He knows the only way for me to be able to be an effective teacher of His Word is to let me go through the things that He lets me go through. So I got to this and I thought, well, really never had anybody try to discredit me doing God's work. And then I thought, oh wait, yeah I did. Yeah I did. And that's all I'm going to say about it. And it was not recent, it was years ago. And I remembered how I handled it, and it was very similar to this. And here's what Nehemiah did. He said, it's not true. He took it to God, and then he got back to work. He said, it's not true. He took it to God, and then he got back to work. Look at verse 8 and 9. I replied, there is no truth in any part of your story. You're making up the whole thing. They were just trying to intimidate us imagining that they could discourage us and stop the work. So I continued the work with even greater determination. Took it to God, and he got back to work. He got back on his wall. Here's the second thing that they do, is they try to discredit you by tempting you to compromise. Tempting you to compromise. This is where the soap opera and Jerry Springer kind of all wrap up. Here, verse 10. Later I went to visit Shemaiah, who was confined to his home. He said, "Let us meet together inside the temple of God and bolt the door shut. Your enemies are coming to kill you tonight." Verse 12. I realized that God had not spoken to him, but that he had uttered this prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat, who are what?
Bad guys.
Bad guys. Had hired him. They were hoping to intimidate me and make me sin. Then they would be able to accuse and discredit me. Trying to draw him into sin. Now, here's a couple of things. First of all, Shemaiah, he was the double agent. He was the guy who played nice, but had something in the back of his mind to try to discredit Nehemiah. Here's the other thing. Why do you think he wanted him to run and go to the temple? I wondered that too. I thought, because you would think, the temple's not a bad place to be, right? But what he wanted was for Nehemiah to run off and leave his people to fight the battle on their own. For him as a leader to abandon his people and only to think of himself. And he could have given in to this. Because as he rose in effectiveness, as he rose being a spiritual leader, I want you to listen to me. Insert me when I say he. As you rise into effectiveness, as you rise as a spiritual leader, it becomes very easy to buy into the fact that you are entitled to more than you are. You begin to believe your own press. Nehemiah could have easily said, you know what? I'm the man. I'm pretty important. I answered a call of God. I traveled 1,000 miles. That wall had been down 140 years until I got there. If I'm not here, that wall don't get built. So you know what? I should be safe. I'm a little bit more important than the rest of the people. I know I'm not supposed to go there, but I'm the man. As church leaders, we fall under the same trap. And do not look at me as a church leader. I said church leaders. So all of a sudden you can be the greatest worship guy or the greatest teaching pastor or the greatest whatever there is, you think. And all of a sudden you begin to think you're just a little bit more important than everybody else. And you begin to think you're a little bit more entitled to things than everybody else is. So as you rise in effectiveness, your enemy will try to convince you that you are more important than you really are. You might say, you know what? Put in a lot of hours for those people. I deserve more than what they're paying. You might say, you know what? I'm doing all of this for God, throwing myself out there, and you would think that when I go home, my wife would give me a little bit more attention than what she's given me. She's not, so guess what? I deserve some attention from a female. Uh-oh. Careful. Careful. So we fall into greed, and we fall into sexual sin, and we fall in, and we fall in, and we fall in because I think, I deserve. So when your enemy tries to throw you off course, you say what? I'm not coming down. I'm not coming down. And then you say something else. I ain't going to quit. I am not coming down, and I'm not going to quit. Look at verse 11. But I replied, should someone in my position run from danger? Should someone in my position enter the table to save his life? No, I won't do it. I'm not going to quit. I'm not giving up my good name. I'm not giving up my integrity. I'm not giving up my character. I'm not giving up my cause. It doesn't matter. Because I'm not coming down off that wall, and I'm not going to quit. So, look at the last 4 weeks. Who does God use?
Always.
What kind of people does God use?
Ordinary.
Ordinary people. God uses ordinary people to do extraordinary things. I want you to start locking in your brains and your hearts right now. Don't get distracted. He wants us to sit down and cry. He wants us to let things break our hearts to break His heart. He wants us to listen to that one thing that He says, I've made you different. This is what you're different about. And I need you to feel the way I feel about this. He wants you to open His heart, your heart, that way. And then He wants you to get on your knees and pray. Because what did Nehemiah do? Everything he did, what did he do? He prayed. He prayed. And then after he prayed, what else did he do? He got up. And he did. He had the Popeye moment. Anybody remember that? I got all I can stand and I can't stand it no more. You guys like that? Wish I had a corncob pie. He wants somebody like Ashley to say, somebody's got to do something about this, and that somebody might as well be me. Because you know why? With God, all things are possible. Amen. So what do? You define your mission clearly. You make plans carefully. And you inspire people passionately. You set yourself on fire with passion and invite people to come and watch you burn up. Then you're going to get discouraged. I know, just kind of knocked you off the mountain. That's kind of what's going to happen. You're going to get discouraged. And what do? You remember the Lord. Go back to Nehemiah 4. Verse 14. Then as I looked over the situation, I called together the nobles and the rest of the people and said to them, don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord who is great and glorious. And fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes. You remember the Lord. You remember what He's done in your life. You remember who you were without Him and who you are now. You remember the journey. You remember the distractions. And you remember the Lord who is great and glorious. And then you fight for something that's beyond yourself. You fight for your children. You fight for your grandkids. You fight for your church. You fight for your family. And then when you get distracted, because after all that fighting you're going to get tired and you're going to get distracted, then you get back up on that wall and you say, I am doing a great work and I am not coming down and I'm not going to quit. So is that the end of the story? Is that it? Look at verse 15. So on October 2nd, what my version says, and what that is it means literally on the 25th day of the month Elul. So on October the 2nd, 445 BC, how long had he been at this? Almost a year from the time he journeyed until the time the wall was complete. Just 52 days after we had begun, the wall was finished. When our enemies and the surrounding nations heard about it, they were frightened and humiliated. They realized this work had been done with the help of our God. What everyone thought was impossible, in 52 days, those people knew that it was the help of God that created that wall to be built. Galatians 6:9 says this, so let's not get tired of doing what is good.